Yes. Figueroa,
Here.
Haid,
Here.
Jalowick,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Redzinski,
Here.
Rago,
Here.
Tinkfall Kong.
Here, we have a quorum. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, James. Please read our Fenton mission. Please read our Fenton mission, beliefs, and Bison Way statements.
Yes, sir. Cultivate successful, passionate, empowered learners through rigor, relevance, and relationship. Our Fenton belief statements include successful, passionate, empowered learners thrive when we provide a safe, caring, and welcoming environment. Diversity, equity, and inclusion unify our community. School and home collaborate as one. We champion innovative teaching and engaged learning with the state-of-the-art facilities. We infuse social and emotional learning into academics and culture. We prepare students to fulfill their civic responsibility. We immerse students in authentic life experiences. The Bison Way. Students and adults at Fenton High School create a safe, caring, empathetic environment where we believe in each other, respect diversity, communicate openly, grow together, and hold each other to high expectations to become the leaders and innovators of the future.
Thank you, James. Barry, do we have any requests for public comments?
No public comments this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. And let's get right to it. District 100 informational items. James?
Sure. Our first up is EOS Sullivan. We have Mr. Colin here from EOS Sullivan to provide a Phase 2 report. He will have a presentation which will be projected. The board will be able to ask questions afterwards, and Colin would explain the next steps.
Thank you for having me. Pulling up everything I need here to get you the information.
Board, as Colin gets ready, there's 3 handouts that looks like this in your folder. Okay, there's a report, a survey, and survey script. Thank you, Colin.
So yes, what you have in front of you is a whole bunch of information. I'm going to summarize and give you kind of the highlights, and then of course pause for questions if you want to dive into certain information. But we have completed Phase 2. As a reminder, this is a 4-phase process. Each phase narrows in until we get to the end where we have a final plan. Phase 1 was getting more broad information from the public, getting them starting to get them comfortable with the idea of engaging and talking with us and giving us their feedback. Phase 2, we presented to the public a menu based on the feedback from your experts, based on the work of the district, and based on the feedback we received during Phase 1. That all informed what we call our menu of the individual projects that could be pursued, the funding levels that could potentially be pursued. And all that was taken out to the public during Phase 2 in 3 different ways. We went out to the public with public engagement sessions. We went and also allowing people to fill out information online as well. We went to the public with a scientific phone survey, and we went to the public with a community committee that was made up of a cross-section of community leaders and individuals who are very involved in the community and very involved in the schools. And so the data that you see in front of us, and again, it's a lot, so I'll summarize, but the data you see in front of you is what was captured and gathered from those 3 tracks of the way that we gathered information. And the reason we do it that way is it allows us to glean information that we can share with you here today. If we see one thing in the survey, for instance, and we see something different from the community committee, what that tells us is that people's opinions change as they get more information, because the community in that phone survey, they're just giving us their intuitive gut reactions, those quick reactions. Whereas the community committee, they've had time to digest, to ask questions, to look at more information. And so what that shows you is the difference between intuitive, or your gut reaction, and informed responses. And why that's helpful for us to talk to you all about is if I see an opinion change from the survey to the community committee, that tells me that the more information we give people, the more they're going to move from A to B. And so that's really helpful for us as we look into the data. And so we've really done a deep dive in the data that you see in front of us, or in front of you. We had good engagement from the public during Phase 2. We had 61 in-person responses. We had 308 phone responses. So a good level of engagement from the public. And that's what's informed the analysis and the suggestions that we have in front of you that I will go through. In that report that you have, which that's the main document, there's a lot of information there, but I would call your attention to the final page there, page 4. That's where, I'm sorry, actually the bottom of page 3 and then going into page 4. That's where I'm going to spend a lot of my time. That's our analysis of the full phase 2 and how that's going to inform phase 3. So that's where I'm going to spend a good amount of time in my presentation here and highlight some key things. Before I do that, I just want to talk through some of the questions we've gotten up until now to make sure I can try to answer those. But of course, I'm sure you'll have more questions as I complete here. First thing was that survey. We were asked, who did we target? What type of survey did we run? That was a phone survey. It was available to all members of the community. That's perfectly done, or purposely done, so that we don't have overrepresentation from a certain subset, like a lot of parents, but not a lot of people who have no kids in the school, or maybe a lot of seniors, but not a lot of younger people. You know, we call every member of the community. They all have an opportunity to participate. And then our data experts do what's called weighting and modeling to make sure that the final results accurately represent the Fenton community. So that, again, no group is over or underrepresented. It's a perfect representation of your district. So that's how the survey was done. It was provided both in English and Spanish to make sure that there weren't barriers for people to be able to complete it should they wish. Those are the questions that I had on the phone survey. I'm going to talk about phase 3 at the end of my analysis, and we'll talk about what happens after that. So those are the questions that we've gotten. I'm going to move now to the report and talking about our analysis there at the bottom of page 3, and then again, going to page 4. So as I said, we looked at the data that we received from those 3 different tracks, and that's what we're using to inform our advice as we move forward. Of the projects that we tested, there were 5 that were clear priorities to the community. And we saw this in the phone survey, we saw this from the community committee, we saw this from the responses online and at the public engagement sessions, that the highest priorities for the community are life safety and infrastructure, programming and career learning spaces, building security, classroom modernization, and classroom capacity, in that order. Those are the 5 highest priorities for the community, and those are the things that they would like to see done. And by the way, not just through this process, but certainly in the coming years, as you all continue to lead this district, certainly look for ways to really touch on those 5 areas, because that's really where your community's top priorities lie. Of the remaining 5, music and performing arts spaces was in 6th, and it was a good 6th, so certainly if there was something more that you might add, if you had the time or the funding, that would be the next one. After that, you see the next ones are not, people weren't opposed to them, they just weren't as high of priorities. And those were outdoor athletic facilities, collaborative spaces, and indoor athletic facilities. And then parking and student drop-off is not a priority. Some really supported it, but it did come in 10th out of 10. So I want to make sure that I call that out to you. I will say, as an aside, you all are elected to lead this district, and you know what the district needs. So you might see items within there that the public said wasn't a priority that you know maybe is a priority. We're not saying to not pursue those things. Again, you were elected for a reason. What we're saying is there are certain items that the public really is prioritizing. And so if you're going to move forward with a plan that requires public support, we'd highly recommend really emphasizing those areas that the public has identified are their top priorities. That doesn't mean you take something from this list that isn't a priority to them and maybe accomplish it through another area of your budget or another part of your planning. It's certainly, again, you may see things that you know need to be done, even if the public didn't place a high priority on it. And a good thing to note is that we did test in the survey all these items, and none of them were so overwhelmingly, had overwhelming opposition where if you did that thing, it would be a problem. The only item that had a negative number associated to it in favorability was parking and student drop-off, and it was, I believe, from my recollection, only about negative 10%, which is not a huge number. So anything in this list that you pursue, you're not going to have opposition, but you want to have as much support as possible. So again, really try to prioritize those top 5 individual projects as much as you can. Next is the potential infrastructure solutions. And as you guys may recall, we put forward to the public 4 potential solutions here at varying levels of investment. So it was maintenance, renovation, modernization, then expansion. And what we saw was that the public didn't really have an overwhelming preference among those 4. There are certain times where we gather data where when we don't see much of a difference in the data, we suggest not really letting it drive your decision making because there isn't a lot of contrast, there isn't a lot of difference. And here, when we look at these 4, they're about even. And really, actually, you saw some people say that they were unsure as their top answer. We don't see that a lot. And so what I would suggest in this area is certainly we did see some data points, which I'll reference, but overall, as we give you guys guidance on what to move to do to the next step, this is a section of the feedback we received that I don't know we're going to put too much extra stock into, because again, people just didn't know. They felt unsure as to the answer to this question. That said, one thing we did see is that the more engaged and informed an individual is, the more they favor expansion and modernization over renovation and maintenance. That was the one clear thing we could pull out, and so I wanted to make sure that I called that out. But that was clear that when we look at the community committee's feedback and the engagement sessions feedback, people did start to lean more towards those options of renovation or expansion and modernization. Whereas when you look at the phone survey, they have a preference towards renovation and maintenance. But again, that unsure response was always our winner. And so I don't know that this section gives us too much, but certainly we'll take from it what we can. The final section of our data from this menu is the funding levels. And this is where, again, we gave certain different levels of funding to the public to give us feedback. There was also the option to say, no, I don't want to give any additional funding. And we also tied to that number the property tax impact for the average taxpayer in the district. So we made it real for people. Just like with the other items where we added costs to make sure we were gathering real data. Again, here, we want to make sure we're gathering scientific data for you all to use. If we say, would you like a brand new blank? Of course, everyone's going to say yes to that. If we say, would you like a brand new blank and it will cost X, well, now people actually are going to think. So we always make sure we're balanced in the way that we present information to the public, and we did the same thing here with the funding levels. What we saw is that the more people get engaged, the more people get involved with the district, the more they prefer that higher and medium funding level, the less people are engaged, as in sort of your average member of the public, the more they lean more towards the minimum funding level or no additional funding. And so it's finding that balance, because unfortunately, should you move forward with a plan that requires a referendum, the success or failure of that referendum is going to be tied to that first group, the group that's less engaged, that's less involved. And so you have to try to find that balance between where's that point where we get enough community support that it makes sense to move forward, but that we're making sure we maximize our investment in improving education for the children. So it's always finding that appropriate balance. That is always the struggle in this process. But we did get a number of key data points that will be helpful. There was certainly some opposition to some of those higher levels that we need to look at, but we didn't see overwhelming support for no additional funding. We've had some districts where no additional funding comes out the winner, and then we have to come to you all and say, you might have a problem here, I don't know that you can move forward. We didn't see that here. Your community is definitely interested in moving forward. They're cautious as to the cost. We're going to have to be careful as to what our numbers are here, but your community is on board with moving forward with this process. That was a great thing to see. We did see that strong opposition when we look at that number in the survey. It got a bit too strong for us to move forward at that high funding level. And so our recommendation for the window that we look at are, when we look at those funding levels that you can see, the minimum, the low, and the medium, that seems to be our safest range to move forward. We are recommending that we cut that high number. And so as we move forward to the next step, this is what's going to guide how we develop those options for the public to consider. That moves me to that portion where we talk about phase 3. So as we move into phase 3, it's about presenting to the public 3 options at those different funding levels that they are comfortable with considering. And so what you're going to see is 3 options at a low, a medium, and a high, and what of those individual projects we can accomplish within those funding levels. Working with the district, working with the district's experts to identify how to do that best. That's that next process that we're working on, so that as we move forward to phase 3, which starts next week, we can show to the public options that they can consider that accomplish as much of the high priorities that they told us while staying within the funding levels that they're comfortable with. So that's how phase 3 will look. That's our next step. It becomes a lot easier for the public to digest, because during phase 2, we're asking them a lot of questions. It can get a little complicated. During phase 3 here, it gets a lot more simple. There's just 3 questions. There's just 3 options to consider. It makes it a lot easier for people to digest the information and make a decision. And so we're going to go out to the public and gather data for phase 3, just like we did during phase 2. So we're going to have a phone survey. We're going to have opportunities for the public to give us feedback. We're going to have community committee meeting. Same way we did in phase 2, we're going to do in phase 3, to go out and get as much data as possible so we can then bring that to you so you can see that data and make an educated decision as a board. Let me make sure I've covered everything. Yes, so just as an idea of what happens after this, so you have an idea, we talked about phase 3. Phase 4 is we take that data from phase 3 where they give us their feedback on those options. In some cases, it's overwhelming, they choose one, and it's clear. This is how we should move forward. In some cases, it's not as overwhelming, where they pick that maybe 2 are tied, or maybe all 3 are tied. And that's where we take the data from phase 2 and figure out why did option 1, why was that popular, why was option 2 popular, why was option 3 popular, and how do we create a hybrid option that gets all the best of all those worlds. So I don't know yet, obviously the data has to drive this, exactly what the outcome will be of phase 3, but no matter what data we get back at the end of phase 3, it will drive to a final community-driven, community-supported plan. Because that's what phase 4 is. Phase 4 is locking in that plan. Phase 4 is promoting that plan to the public, making sure everyone's aware, including especially our stakeholders, like our community committee, who've really invested their time into this. It's you all as a board debating and making sure you're comfortable and making adjustments as you see are needed. And then if that plan requires a referendum, it would be you all voting on putting a referendum on the ballot. Should you do that, then this process transitions to more of an educational effort. There'll be a campaign committee separate from you all that forms that'll work on the actual campaign effort, but you all as a board, the district, you cannot expend resources for or against a referendum. What you can do is you can promote that there's a referendum on the ballot. You can ask questions or answer questions from the public. You can inform them of what's led to this point. You can educate them as to why this is the direction you went. All of those things are things you're allowed to do, and you're even allowed to encourage people to vote. You want people to have their voices heard on this. So all of those things are things you definitely should do. We will provide you a plan and what you can do, and certainly we have the option. We could even walk you through it and help you in that process. But those are the things that you would do once you get past a potential board vote. And so that's kind of the future of what this potentially looks like, so you guys have that clarity. I know we're in phase 2 now, so I don't want to look too far ahead, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of that picture. So that's the phase 2 report. I know there's a lot of data in front of you, so anything I can answer in the data or something I said that was unclear, please let me know. I'd be happy to clarify. No questions is usually a good thing.
So the biggest hurdle would be how to inform those not involved. I would say general public for both committees. And how have that been done in the past
Yeah.
with other committees?
Yeah, I think one thing that we've seen is once you have something that the public has to take an action on, let's say like a referendum, they have a little bit more of an impetus to get involved. What you all have done is a very good thing in that you've had a very transparent process and a process that anyone who wishes to get involved can. From having our public engagement sessions on different days of the week at different areas at different times, to providing things in Spanish and in English, online or in person. Like, you've done everything you need to do to make it available to the public so that they can participate. Even if they choose not to participate, what our research has shown is that they very much appreciate that. That when it becomes something on their ballot, they remember that they had the chance to be part of that plan. They chose not to in many cases because most people don't participate. You all know you put this work in and 1 or 2 or 3 people might show up to a board meeting, and that's normal, that's okay. But they at least remember that you tried and that you gave them that opportunity. And so when we get to the engagement session, or sorry, the referendum part, if that's where this ends up, you will have a lot of favorable feelings from the public that you did this in a transparent and open way. But now it's something they have to vote on, so now they want to know more about it. And so what we've seen is that that interest level does definitely rise. And so again, what we recommend is during that portion, you all having things like we've done already, where you have opportunities for people to come out, to see things on boards, to see it visually, maybe even take a tour to see what might be done, what wouldn't be done, to ask questions, pushing information out via social media. Even sometimes people in the district might send a mailing that says, here's what this is all included, and there's a lot of things you can do. And again, we'll give you guys that plan and kind of walk you through at the appropriate time what that looks like. And then that community committee that forms, that runs the actual campaign, they'll do a lot of that grassroots work. Again, separate from you all, they'll do work to get out to the community, to knock on doors and make phone calls and go to them. Because in the era of social media, no one comes to you to get information. You kind of have to go to them. You guys understand that. And so yes, there will be various efforts that do that to make sure that we get information out to the public, some of which you all can participate in, some of which you cannot. But I think I mentioned we'll provide you all a document vetted by our legal experts that say these are the things you can do, these are the things you can't do. We don't want you all to be put in a bad spot where you don't know if you can do X or Y. Like, we'll make sure you're prepared on But the good news is there will be a lot that happens to get the information in front of the public before they're asked to vote at the ballot box.
Any other questions?
Just to piggyback on what Colin was saying, Mr. Lewis, is that the Phase 1 video was a huge success. Every time we showed that video, we showed it here at the board meeting. We're planning to do a Phase 2 video of the facilities as well. So that blitz of trying to reach the unengaged is critical. I said it over and over. Folks who took a tour of the building are convinced, to say the least.
I guess my question was more leading into, it's easy to reach the community who have a child here and is invested in what the school conditions look like. But for those who don't, the measures and how far and what can we do to bring more of those non-involved in, to at least having meetings or different platforms for them to get information about why.
Yeah, and I gave you a long-winded answer. Let me
Yeah.
give you a shorter one, because I want to answer that specifically.
Yeah.
So the reason why people get engaged, humans, we all are, we act on self-interest. That's just what we
Yeah.
do. And so if I have no stake in that game, I'm not going to show up. And so that's why we do the phone survey, because people aren't going to come out to a community committee meeting or a public engagement session. So we go to them with those phone surveys. That's why that data is so helpful. That said, people have a stake in the game now if it's a referendum, because that's actually going to show up on their property taxes. And so the equation does change. Should you all decide to vote to put a referendum on the ballot, the total equation changes. Now we're not asking them to come out and give feedback on schools where they don't have kids in the schools. Now we're saying, hey, we'd like you to get engaged on something where you're going to have to vote on this in June. Suddenly they do get more engaged. And so I do think you're going to see more success and more opportunities. Should you vote to put something on the ballot, you'll see in those following months, people will be more willing to get engaged, because now it does impact them. Whereas we know it does impact them now, they don't think that it does. But they will more likely think that it impacts them once it's actually a referendum.
point.
So I do think you will naturally see an improvement. Couple that with us doing a lot of hard work to make sure we're putting information in front of them. I think both of those things will help solve that problem.
So having a plan prior to then in place to continue to inform those non-parents
Yep.
probably be crucial.
Absolutely, and that's all part of Phase 4 of this process, where should you all arrive at a consensus plan that you all want to move forward, part of Phase 4 is, okay, now we build out, how do we make sure that gets out to the public? How do we make sure we educate them on what led to this point and why this is a need? All of that is part of that phase as we get to that point.
And I was just thinking about the transparency, which is great, because we just had a moment of how we felt being surprised about something. So people will feel, as you said, will feel much better not being surprised. They know that this is what we're working towards, a referendum. So it won't be a surprise at all. And so that makes people feel like, well, at least I was considered. So I'm glad that we're working with your company to present this to the community and those who it will impact.
Well, I can tell you from our perspective, we've seen your administration and the district's experts really working to take this data and let it drive decision to that next step, where you might have had preconceived notions of, we think maybe we want to do this, maybe we want to do that, but the data now came back and said this is what we need. And we've watched as they've worked with the experts to say, how do we accomplish what the district, what our community residents have asked for? And that has led to, as you see these three options rolled out to the public, it's all driven by what the public said they wanted. So this is a plan that is being driven by feedback from the members of the public, and we've watched it happen, where it's not always the most comfortable or convenient exercise, but following that data, and it forces you sometimes to change what you thought maybe you wanted to do, but that's how you arrive at a consensus plan that the public says, oh, yeah, that's my plan. And so we've seen it happen, and I definitely commend your district's administration for really working through that process.
Yeah, and I would say that, the root of this comes from our commitment to the district, right? To make sure that we're taking care of it, that we're keeping it current, and we fix problems and be transparent with this so people know. I think that's what the process is about, is to, these videos that we're showing are showing real causes for us to create this funding so that we can fix these problems. and then look ahead to make sure that it's sustainable, that we're getting the value for the dollar that we're asking for.
The facts that we're gathering, I'm looking at the whole package. I'm looking back at the STR documents and the facility assessment and renovation options. Is this information being fed to STR to help them update their thinking and create, for lack of a better word, packages that meet what we are gathering? Because what I have here is the original document, and now based with this information, I see some glaring changes. I think this is great because I'm very happy with it. I'm just trying to think ahead. I might be ahead of myself, but I'm assuming that once we get done with phase 3 and we have to make a decision in phase 4, we'll get updated documents from STR showing just this information and how we incorporated it in the spending brackets potentially.
Sure, I could answer that question, John. Great question, and Colin can follow up. From the beginning, from the facility audit, we have held hands with STR.
Perfect.
And we brought in EOS. We have held hands with STR and EOS. Once that team was established, this wasn't communicated to the board, just forgot. We created a team called Legacy Team that meets at least once every 2 weeks. And this team engineered phase 1 in many ways with our consultant leading the way, engineered phase 2, and right now, what Colin was saying, he admired the administration coming up with 3 numbers. That administration included the STR architects.
Perfect. I would hope it would.
Actually, they were the number crunchers. Bruce, would you like to, do you agree with that, with the folks in our legacy team as well?
Yeah, and I think it continues to be tweaked and modified as we, gather more information. So it's a great team, a lot of good feedback, very respectful of one another's opinions, and I think they've shown that in their updates of the information that we've been talking and reviewing, and so I think we're on a good track. So James has done a great job leading that committee.
Yeah, and we've seen that. Alan is definitely an STR. They're leading the charge on their portion. And the documents you've seen, we're starting to see updates on how do we morph that now into this. So I would assume that, yes, you'll absolutely
Well,
be seeing
that's
those
just
updates.
blending it all together
Yes.
to keep the course, be transparent, use what we're receiving from the public, and then help us make an educated decision when the time comes.
Absolutely.
So I kind of hoped it would, but if you don't ask.
Don't assume. Yep.
Learn not to assume. Thank you.
All right, so thanks for explaining it. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, hey, Colin, you said that there were
Okay.
308 phone surveys
Yes, ma'am.
completed? And how did people participate in that again?
Through the phone. So they receive a phone call.
They
and then can-
received a phone call?
Correct.
Okay.
So
there
we
was-
call every member of the community as much as we possibly can get to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can choose to pick it up and take the survey. They can choose not to take the survey, but they're given that option to do so.
Okay.
And
And
we
then-
also put it on the website, Colin. If they missed a phone call, you could call in on this number to get more number.
Right. And that
individuals.
seemed to me that it was kind of a short time period that it was out there, because I know it was starting to get out word of mouth, and I knew a couple parents who were like, oh, yeah, I heard we could do this, and then when they went to do it, it was too late. So.
Yeah, in order to, the survey itself has to become an official scientific process. And so that's where my data experts and I sometimes will fight, because I want everyone to be able to participate. I want it to go for 3 weeks. Like, those are the things I want. But the problem is when it comes to a survey, you start to get inaccurate in your data if you do it too fast or too long. Whereas, for instance, if we only give people 1 day, just as an extreme, to respond, you don't know, maybe there's a school function that night, or maybe the seniors had a thing going on that night, so now seniors are underrepresented. So you have to take it at least 3 days, so you allow for, don't let any of those mistakes happen. The opposite happens where if you keep it open too long, now people can start to stuff that ballot box, where maybe someone's really against something, and they can make sure they get 20 or 30 of their friends to call in that phone number and try to stuff the ballot box for something or against something. And so there's a sweet spot when it comes to this, that the data experts tell me, like, this is how long we can do it, and then we have to stop, and we have no choice. because we want to make sure we're giving you accurate data. And the moment one of those things happens, I can't stand up here and say, this is scientifically accurate. Like, that's the key word. So
Okay.
in some of the other things, we have some flexibility, like the community committee, the public engagement sessions. But on that phone survey, for it to be scientifically accurate, there are certain parameters we cannot
Got
make.
it, okay. And are we going to do the same thing with phase 3?
Yes,
then?
ma'am.
Okay.
Colin, how do you, when you reach out to residents, how do you appear on their phone?
What comes up on
Does
their
it come
caller
up as
ID?
spam? Does it come up as, you know, the name of your group? Does it come up as Fenton? Because
Yeah, there's
nobody's
a
answering
specific-
spam anymore.
Correct. Yeah, there's a specific name that they put. With each district, it's sometimes different. It's something that another member of my team handles. So I don't know exactly what was listed, but it's always something specific. It isn't a spam number.
That's all I wanted to
It
know.
says something about phone survey. Sometimes it says the district name.
That's all I
No,
wanted
I
to know.
received that phone, and I was part of it, and it was 847. It was the name of a girl, and they were really polite. My relatives took that survey.
As long as it doesn't say spam, because nobody answers that.
No, no, it was not that.
That's
The
perfect.
number was registered, it was legit, and it was a professional way.
Oh, I'm not worried about the professionalism. I just know if it
Well,
appears on
I'm
my phone as
saying, when
spam.
I'm saying a professional, it was
Yeah.
registered.
Perfect. No, thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Any other questions? We're good? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Colin.
Thank you, sir.
All right, let's give him a hand, guys. Bring him in. Lift this up. Mr. President, can I go ahead?
I think we're at strategic plan next, right?
Informational updates, just real quick. Strategic plan is afterwards. I'll just go through the list here. COVID-19 updates. Next slide, please, Jim. We're going to go over the metrics, testing, quarantine, and isolation, Fenton metrics as well, and other. Next slide, please. The trends is still up, but there's a trend going down if you look at that last slide there right here. All of this information came from the DuPage County Public Health Department. Next slide, please. This next slide is by age. Still a upward trend for most age group here, except for our senior citizens there
Starting
at
to
the
come down
purple.
on all of them.
Yep, starting to come down, yes. Next slide, please. Should be the pediatrics. Trend going down as well. It peaked during the holidays. Next slide, please. This is hospitalization. The blue is ICU, COVID. The orange is COVID not ICU. Next slide, please. This is deaths. Next slide, please. This is vaccination numbers there. Approximately 77% of DuPage County is fully vaccinated. Next slide, we have some interest in this slide. 12 to 17 years old, at least one dose is at 77% and fully vaccinated in 71%. I get some questions saying, how many of our students are vaccinated? It reflects the DuPage number. It might be a slightly higher because of the 16 vaccination and booster efforts we have been doing this last 12 months. Next slide, please. Here are some Fenton numbers here. The first chart on the top is COVID cases. You can see there, numbers don't lie, right? You can see before the holidays, we had a steady 0, 1 cases here and there, a couple 9s there. But man, right after the holidays, shot up to 26, to some numbers there, to 18 there, I believe. And we're seeing it start to go down. The chart numbers that are quarantined, you'll also see that trend. It spikes up during the holidays and coming back, but there's a trend right now. Mr. Jaramillo, how many quarantine do we have presently at the building?
Students or staff, sir?
Student staff. If you don't remember, I have it here.
Off the top of my head, for students, we have 36 students that are currently quarantined.
Does this say 141?
Yep.
Yes, that was last week. Yep,
Quarantine?
quarantine,
Wow.
right. And on the top cases up there is the tested positive. And I believe there are 5 staff members that are currently quarantined.
And we're practicing the shortened quarantine period, right?
That is
The 5
correct.
days.
When you say quarantine, that includes potential exposed
Close
in
contact, yes, sir.
addition to? Okay.
Yes.
So are you saying that the 21 students have it and then 141, what's the 21? It's like, I see
In
21.
the last column.
21 have it?
The red.
141 are quarantined?
That's staff. The 21 is staff.
Oh, I
Staff
got you,
quarantine
okay,
numbers, and then the 141 is students that were quarantined last week.
okay, wow.
At any given, that's like any given time during the week. That's the highest number.
Gotcha.
That's how we've been reporting it all year. The highest number of students or staff any day that week that were out due to
Yeah.
quarantine.
So those are the Fenton metric numbers. Next slide, please, Jim. In regards to testing, I know we've been working on this since the beginning of the year. It's called Shield Illinois. Real quickly, Shield Illinois was invented and produced from the University of Chicago, University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. It's a saliva test of identifying COVID. That will kick off here at Fenton on January 26th. It's voluntary. Kid also asked that question, are we utilizing the new CDC IDPH ISB guidance in regards to quarantine from 10 days to 5 days? The answer is yes. Next slide, please. Yes,
The shield, is that a swab-based test?
it's saliva, sir.
You fill up a
You-
little tube with saliva.
It's a spit test.
They spit into this little tube and.
Yeah,
What-
I've heard about that.
Does it include swab or just saliva?
This is purely
Oh, okay. I thought it
saliva.
was swab
Yes,
and
sir.
saliva, okay, got it.
And when you say it's volunteer, like, students can, like, when
Could
will
opt
it-
out.
Will there be test days, or is this just?
It's only, it's
Mr.
only on
Miller, would you like to
Wednesdays.
fit?
It's only
They
on
opt
Wednesdays.
out or they can opt in? I mean, is that like,
This will be opt-out. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
So
I was gonna say, it's only on Wednesdays that'll be done.
everybody will be tested?
The
Or-
expectation is students that are participating in IHSA competitions they'll receive a pass. If we've received a opt-out form, which I've got 30 of those total for all students in our building, they will not receive a pass. And then students will be welcome to test if they so choose, because we've had parents ask for it as well. They're welcome to come down during their lunch period. The only tricky part is they cannot eat prior to testing, eat or drink. Staff will also be asked to participate if they'd like to do so. So we do have unvaccinated staff, for example, that have to test weekly. That's just part of the governor mandate. So that'll be their way of testing.
So there are restrictions, I think, to the student if they opt out?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Restrictions to how they, where they can attend activities? Is that what I heard?
No, they're not being restricted.
Okay.
They're just, there's parents that submitted a form stating
Right.
that they did not want their child to test for COVID on our school grounds.
But if they don't test, are they, maybe restricted to attend events or anything like that? Oh, okay.
No,
just-
no, absolutely not.
Okay, got it.
So we're testing everybody unless they opt out
That's correct.
on Wednesdays, whether they have symptoms or not.
Correct.
Okay, and the reason for that is,
Create a safe environment.
but if you don't have symptoms, there's no reason to test,
Well,
except,
Well, I think what he
Some people
also
can be
mentioned, we're starting
asymptomatic.
with athletics and activities and those kids, because what we've seen over time is a higher probability of transmission in like an activity or in athletics. So like, for example, if one kid has it, may not fully be aware that they have it, that could prevent possible spread to other teammates. So that's why the initial impetus would be to focus on those students. And like Mr. Jaramillo said also, it would be, specifically a parent that says, I really would like my son or daughter tested this week. It doesn't have to be every week. I mean, that ends up being their choice.
So basically, we're offering it to everyone in the school unless the parent opted them out at the discretion of the parent or the student.
yes.
Right.
We're not making everybody line up and spit in a vial. They have to choose to go. They
Correct.
just have the option. Everybody is allowed if they should so
We are
choose,
not
other
going
than
to
the 30
force
opt-out.
folks to be tested.
Right, because I think that was
Right.
some of the misconception that I'm hearing, is we're requiring it. We're not requiring it, we're offering it. If you should so choose, feel free. If you don't choose, no harm, no foul. If you've opted out, you can't choose because your parents have spoken for you.
And how does it work? How will the semantics of it go? So will kids get pulled out during bison time, or will they get?
Yeah, so we have a list of about 250 kids that are competing in IHSA sport or activity right now. So those students will receive a pass from first period to 8th period. So about 30 students per period. We don't want to have all of them at once because we don't want them to lose their entire class period to be down, in the auditorium. So there'll be 2 check-in stations. They'll check in with the SHIELD personnel. They'll receive their test tube, produce the saliva, put it back in the rack, and then go back to class. So it should be 5 minutes. That's what we're hoping at the most. And then staff are going to go throughout the day as well.
And how fast do they get these tests back?
24 hours is average for them. So we'll receive results and then work with the nurse and have to quarantine people if necessary.
And then the 5-day quarantine if they need to.
So we're looking forward to that. That starts in January 26th, and I'm sure we will brief the board again in February to make sure we're all on the same page there. This next slide here, just a FYI real quick, folks. As you have read probably in the news, there is a lawsuit against the state and selected school district, about 150 of them, in regards to masks and quarantine. Fenton was not part of the suit, okay? And spoke to legal already, Mr. Tom Melody, in regards to basically asking him some basic question. His advice to us is just wait and see right now. It hasn't ruled yet. And once again, we wait for the state response. So I just want to put that on your radar so no one's blindsided that this is coming down the road. In Springfield, it was a southern part of the state. So once again, this is an FYI. We're watching this very closely.
So wait and see what the ruling is
Yes.
before we do anything.
Correct.
Is that-
And also wait and see what how the state responds. This is really against the state in many ways. Next slide, open lunch pilot program. It is going really, really well. We wish more seniors take advantage of it, quite besides the Regos. I think anywhere between, at some days, anywhere from 50 to 60 to 75, we would like that number to grow. Therefore, we're going to expand the pilot program, and we're going to remain a pilot so we could close it down when we need to. If we see some issues throughout the entire second semester, after the school year is done, we'll review and reflect, talk to the board, and if it looks good, we want to pilot it again. We see COVID being here next year as well.
My daughters were very upset about this, by the way.
Because they wanted to participate
Yes,
and get some
yes,
home-cooked lunch, right? I would too. So we'll see how that goes. We believe that the numbers will slightly grow when it's a little bit warmer outside. Next slide, please. Strategic Plan 2.0 update. Just wanted to make sure, this is a key, this is our North Star, this is our roadmap for the next 3 years. This is extremely important to all of us here. We're going to start with the action plans in the next couple of weeks here with the administrative team. And once the action plan is completed, we'll initiate it starting July 1st for the start of the fiscal year. Next slide, please. As you know, we all worked on this as a team. We created approximately 20 to 21 goals, and each of those goals will have action plans. So in comparison to Strategic Plan 1.0, we will have more action steps, Ms. Papanikolaou. So there's going to be a lot of work ahead. Next slide, please. Speaking of working ahead, one of the strategic plan goals is to be viable, to be sustainable, to be a alternative energy for a school district. And what we have done is work with Future Green, which is a private organization that has been basically endorsed by the Illinois Association of School Administrators, the Illinois Association of School Board, your association, and the Illinois Association of CSBO, Chief Business Officers here. So how does this look like on top of roofs, right? It's basically solar panels. Where do we put the solar panels? On top of a roof, a lot of surface area there. It would look something like this. That's our campus there. It would, the rendering would look something like the one on the screen right there. Let me get my slide here, put on my glasses so I could read. just wants to reiterate again, this is in its neophyte stage, right? No decision has been made. We haven't signed any agreement, even though they would love us to sign to the yesterday. We have not done that. As you could see, part of the reason is they want a 25-year contract, basically, or agreement. And currently, their projection is to charge us 6 cents a kilowatt per hour. We're currently paying $1 a kilowatt hour. So if you look down there in regards to saving, the projected saving is about $67,000 per year. So there are some savings there. What this contract would include, which include operation and maintenance, they take care of that. We do not. They also take care of insurance. We do not. They take care of the management of the solar panels. We do not. Their lease rate per year is $1. Okay, extremely cheap. And that's where we're at right now with Future Green. We want to keep that collaborative spirit with Future Green. That's and to gather more information.
So you
Here-
say, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
The lease rate, so it would be a system that's leased?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, $1 a year.
Is it $1 per panel per year?
It's $1 per year for just utilizing Fenton. And that was why it was endorsed by the III. Here are some things to remember. The current electrical lease rate now we have with our current provider is, we have 2 more years on the lease. That's why we can't agree to this agreement. We also have a potential referendum in the future, which will change the surface area. I've informed them we need more space, so it might be beneficial for them. Fenton is planning and exploring. It puts us right in the driver's seat, so we're seeing what we want to do with the future. STR, John, is involved with this as well, okay? We want to continue the relationship, and they want to continue their relationship with us as future customers. Once again, no agreement at this time, and we need board feedback when we do get closer to that date. But we just want to make sure you're aware of it. This is part of the action plan of the strategic plan where we want to move forward to. Any questions on that?
You said it's a 25-year lease?
They would like the 25. We would obviously like to negotiate that as well. So there's some negotiating there.
2 questions, and this is the long run. I know will the solar panels take away our need to use ComEd totally? And if not, what does ComEd charge us if we need to have them do work? You know, you buy your electricity from ComEd, you don't pay for anything coming up to your house. We have something happen, just questions for them for in the future. I know we're a long way off.
That's a great question. Bruce, any insight on that?
I think it's about a 60-40 split. We'd love it to be 100%, but it's not going to be. So I think it's 60 with the solar and then 40% with ComEd still.
So then we'll still have to pay ComEd
We would still have to pay-
something?
Yes.
And that way we still get ComEd services up to our building
Yes.
at no cost?
Well, the 40% that are.
That is the cost. I
Yeah,
get it. I get it. But no additional fee?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I can explain that a little bit. So it's basically about reducing the cost of consumption. So when we were already consuming that 100% in the building, the utility company still delivers it, right? Once it hits to us and we're consuming it, what we're trying to do is reduce and
No, I
offset those
get
costs.
it. I understand that concept.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if the panels were gonna be enough to bring us 100% self-sufficient. That was.
Yeah. What would be cool though, once we, let's say 2 years from now, and the conditions are right, and the STR comes in, we do the renos and all that stuff, this becomes part of the planning. So it's good that James is doing this, just as a preface,
Nope.
right?
No, perfect.
Just to think of everything. The other thing too, though, is once we implement it, like we can always look at operations, the way we consume, and all of a sudden we could be more efficient and maybe go from 60-40 to 80-20, or even go above that if technology is there. Then what's happening here, we start getting credits back. So it just sets us up for savings down the road, but also being green. But more importantly, though, as a fiscal responsibility that we have, it's also a move to that direction as well. Hopefully that helps.
Very good. Thank you. We're very excited with this. All right, moving on to the next topic. As you know, every semester usually at the end of the first semester, I review and preview semester 1 and preview semester 2. During my weekly conversation with our president and vice president, Kit and Juliet, is that, hey, look, wouldn't it be beneficial if the board sees there's a roadmap, what they tackled per quarter? And this is what we're trying to achieve here. It's also part of the onboarding, so it's fair game. Here's the beauty about schools, it's cyclical. Okay, we have graduation every year. We got to do our budget. We got to do a levy every year. So I'm trying to give you guys a feeling of what to expect this winter. So first up, July through to September, we got a tentative budget hearing of the budget. This is what you expect during this time frame. Final approval of the budget, financial audit presentation approval, EIS admin teacher benefits report, basically telling state how much our administrators and teachers and staff make. Board conference expenses notice is basically we're asking for approval that the board does have expenses and professional development. Board finance and facility meeting, that's what we did at 6 o'clock. And the Illinois Association of School Board Fenton Board workshop with Dee Molinari. We do that every year. Next slide. This one is from October to December. Big topics include estimated tax levy. We want you to approve the tax levy final, the annual financial report, the shared service report, annual joint conference in downtown, course catalog with Ms. Papanicolaou, Shape of Wooddale with Kit, Illinois Association of School Board Regional Fall Meeting with Dee Molinari and Kit as well, being part of that, the DuPage Illinois Association of School Board. Board policy meeting we will have, board finance and facility meeting as well. Next slide. From January to March, what should you expect? A draft and approval of the school calendar. We'll approve that this evening. Authorizing preparation, publication of tentative budget, superintendent evaluation, approval of staff plan, FTEs, extended employment, salary adjustment, notice of non-renewal and dismissal, staff service contract renewal, student Chromebook purchase, board finance facility meeting. And April through June to end of the year, approval of board calendar. That's a repeat there. That should be removed there. No, I'm sorry. This is the board calendar, not student calendar. Thank you. That will be done there. Student Code of Conduct revision, Illinois High School Association membership renewal, school treasury appointment, NEDSEC lease agreement, consumable materials on textbook replenishment proposal, consolidated grant approval, DEOS TCD board appointment, and graduation. So those are some key points where we'll ask for approval, you guys will vote on, so something to keep in mind, and it's cyclical year to year. Any questions on that? Michelle?
There's even more fourth quarter. There's another page of fourth quarter responsibility.
There's more in fourth quarter, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Illinois City School Board Regional Spring Office, anticipated summer curriculum, thank you. I forgot about summer school, curriculum hours, anticipated summer workshop hours, school treasury surety bond, new textbook purchase. That's why you wanted it. The textbook is important. That's your stuff.
Personal interest.
I am sorry. Summer facility project, that's a Bruce project there, along with the board policy meeting again, and financial meeting as well. That leads us to onboarding with our newest board member, Mr. Lewis. I hope that you find that productive, sir. As well as for Sylvia and John, I hope the onboarding. And it's a continued process. I think it's about 1.5 years, 2 maximum. And once again, one-on-one meetings is important, as well as some of the professional development you receive. Love to hear some feedback from you folks. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
In regards to onboarding?
I think even, to see that kind of in a nutshell, what we're,
Yeah, so the previous quarterly calendar where
Yeah.
we kind of see it, I hope to put it together. Me and Sylvia had spoken to James about it in our meeting.
Juliet.
Or Juliet, what did I say?
You said
Sylvia.
Sylvia.
Oh, I was looking at Sylvia, okay. But, we're hoping to put it together and then be able to let us all see, what to look for, like what we're voting on, what we have to look at. I figure that'd be good planning for all of us. So,
Very good.
thank you, James.
Thank you. Next slide, please. This next slide is about the 2022 upcoming Global Service Project. So let's introduce this with a video. And I think you got someone on this video.
Yeah, there's Leo.
Who? Me? Well,
The IASA Global Service Project is in its inaugural year, and the idea was to bring together superintendents and school board members from across Illinois to come and experience the service project together, to build understanding of one another, and to do amazing things for the schools and the communities here in the Dominican Republic. And the hope is that maybe some of them will like to go back to their school districts and create opportunities like these for their students.
We first spent a day at an environmental school where we did some hard labor, walked around and looked at the school, and they taught us about the school and where it came from. And then today we're here at the Montessori school and helping refurbish some of the playground. I know there's some concrete being laid over there. I believe they set up a new trash station over in the corner. I didn't know what to expect coming into this. You know, first night, didn't know a lot of people, and now I feel like I've known these people for years. At this point, it's only been a couple days, and already looking forward to maybe seeing them outside of the setting, but definitely would do this again without a doubt.
To experience a different culture has been mind-blowing. I think as professionals and as people in general, we really need to expand our horizons outside of our own little bubbles. Not only does it give me the opportunity to give back, it gives others the opportunity to see that there are people in the world from all over the world who genuinely care about others and what happens to them in their culture and their country.
It's about connecting with other people, about connecting with other countries, because we're all in this thing together, and what affects one of us affects all of us. Being able to participate in this project allows me to understand how my students can have an impact and hopefully come and participate.
When we can get together and really get to know each other and understand where we come from, there's a saying that if you know someone's story, you can't help but like them. And we know all each other's stories. And what a beautiful thing to get to know all of you.
I entered this trip with one best friend, and it's gonna be hard to leave the 30 close friendships that we've created over the week. It's really, really powerful. When we came to serve others, we also acquire gratitude for all of our unique circumstances and who we are. So I feel like my cup is just truly overflowing.
if we can service in some other countries, we can do it in our community. Not only helping the community, we are helping the future generations.
I think the most valuable part really is how everybody kind of got together to really work as a team. I would definitely do it again. For me to continue to grow in that fashion, right? To continue to understand myself as a person, how, first of all, I can impact somebody else's life, but also how these experiences can impact my life also.
The positive things that I've seen and how people affect each other on just a very minute level, but how important that is. I'm gonna bring things back that I would have never had the experience of before and be able to tell people and get them involved and come back and say, hey, we can make a difference just by the little things that we're doing. These are little things. You see the impact that it makes on everybody, and it's very rewarding.
There are people here together that never would have met one another from across Illinois if not for this opportunity. And so seeing those conversations and friendships and collegiality grow, as they're doing this amazing work, they're also building sustainable relationships they're going to bring back to Illinois.
Hey, Jim, if you could go 2 slides back, please. So real quick, they're gonna do they would like to do the trip again. We have been invited. There's an application process since we have attended last year. Board, this is an awesome opportunity to see how school district in other countries, in particular a third world country like the Dominican Republic, function. There is also an option for our students to attend with a cost, obviously, but for board members and superintendents, there's an opportunity for leaders to see how different pedagogy, school structure exists in other countries as well. So please let me know if you are interested. We could put in an application. This will be during the Columbus holiday, Indigenous Day holiday in October. It's approximately Leo, 5 nights and 6 days.
Yes.
I believe. Expenses is from your pockets, and it's approximately about $1,000. But it's a great experience. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of muscle work, but very rewarding. Leo, anything you want to add there?
Well, not too much, but you really enjoy it. Sometimes you got to get up early and go to bed late, but it's a lot of learning. A lot of learning and a lot of hearing from the community and their thoughts and what they expect for everybody. It's really interesting to go there.
What are the days? I'm sorry.
It's during that holiday break, Columbus Day, Indigenous Day, usually
Columbus Day is
October
October
12th.
10th.
Yep. So we usually leave Thursday morning and get back that Tuesday night. Great experience. And unfortunately, they will take one superintendent and one board member per school district. Last year, because of COVID, and it's still COVID, there was an email saying, and I shared it with you folks, that they can accommodate an additional board member. And that's where Leo jumped in for that opportunity. I think all of you should go, take turns at it. And I will ask again, hey, look, I might have another board member who's interested. Can we bring 2? So it's flexible, but once again, it's an application process, and I believe we got a good chance of being selected.
Yeah,
Cool.
great.
Thanks.
Okay. The last report is a FOIA request. We received one from Smart Procurement, basically wanting to know our invoice and purchase order for the quarter. And the second one is from Smart Local 265, asking our contracts for this school year, our current contract, whether it's HVAC, whether it's construction. Both FOIAs have been resolved. Next slide. That's the conclusion of our report.
Yeah, so we're going next to the consent agenda. Just take a look here. And do we have any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? Anyone?
Oh, yeah, what, on the personnel report, what is the term? Hang on, wait for it. Overload, teacher overload.
That's when a teacher, normally teachers teach 5 class periods, so if that teacher agrees to pick up an extra class, a 6th class, that's when they get paid an overload.
Got it.
So in that
Okay.
situation, we were not able to find somebody to take a .4 teaching assignment, so one teacher took one of the classes and then another teacher took another one. So we had 2 teachers take an overload.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I had a feeling it was something like that.
Can we go into more detail about the donation to the chess club? What was that about?
Donation, Mary Timmons?
I'm sorry, I
The
didn't
chess,
hear.
the chess club donation, how much was it?
It was $500.
Yeah, it was for T-shirts, they donated T-shirts or something, or?
It was more than just T-shirts. I think it was, I'm not sure if it's applications for tournament fees. It was a monetary donation so they could do what they needed to.
Got it.
Any further questions? The financial report, the treasurer's report, minutes, anything? Okay. If you guys have no other questions, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, John.
Second?
Okay, thank you, Juliet. And may I have a roll call, please?
Rego?
Yes.
Figueroa?
Yes.
Haid?
Yes.
Jallowit?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Redzinski?
Yes.
Ting Po Pong?
Yes, and motion passed. Let's go to the discussion action items. First one is the 2021 Tax Consortium Intergovernment Agreement.
Yeah, thanks, Kit.
Bruce, please.
Yeah,
Yep.
we gave you some background information on this resolution for the Bensenville Property Tax Consortium. Periodically, this resolution gets updated, and we have a new member, and we've changed some language in the contract, so it was time to take action on a new resolution. So we kind of identified the 5 items in there that have changed. The biggest one, I guess, or one of them, is adding the fire department as the 6th member, adjusting the billing rates, removing the hourly rate, so we have kind of more of a consultation rate, and so on. So all the members are listed there. The Village of Bensenville Library, Fenton, Bensenville District 2, the Park District, and the Bensenville Fire Protection District. So the whole really purpose of the consortium is to share legal costs when intervention is necessary for tax objections that are not warranted. So that's the background. Each entity, taxing body, has to approve this resolution, so we're asking our board to act on that this evening. And the resolution is on the following page after the write-up on there.
We'll take a minute to ask any questions if we need.
How effective have we been with the Bensenville? I mean, it's a great thing. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just curious, as a newer member, how have we been doing with
pretty
this
much
group?
every, I would say every intervention we've had, there's been a reduction. Some are greater than others, but there's been reductions. Sometimes we have to get an appraiser involved, but more often than not, we're always been successful getting a reduced amount.
So we've been successful in reducing the challenge, if not eliminating, normally just reducing. I don't think,
Yeah,
is it
we'd
often
love
we
to
ever
eliminate
eliminate?
it entirely, but sometimes you have agreements where they'll agree for the past couple of years, it'll be all in one settlement, so you.
So it's been effective.
It has been, yeah.
Money
Yeah.
well spent and sharing it with the other entities.
Yes.
It's a lot
Yeah.
easier than fighting it alone.
Yep, and I should say one more, there is a separate consortium within the Wooddale community, but this one just pertains to Bensenville.
So we have an agreement with Wooddale as well in the same basic
We do.
principle?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Just real quick, so I have a better understanding of it. The consortium, and I know we share costs strictly with insurance? Is that?
I'm sorry.
What are the costs that are being shared? It's essentially liability.
For the attorneys to get involved and
Yeah.
Intervene with
Okay.
all the paperwork and lining up the appraisal, challenging the appraisals or reductions, calculating the final refunds, and just negotiating with their legal counsel, the business's legal counsel, in terms of coming to an agreement where there's disagreement on what the true value of the property should be, so
Okay.
oftentimes their, value is far less than what our value, comes to be. So there's an agreement to arrive at a settlement, basically.
Okay.
And how often do we need the legal for this?
Well, they have a certain period of time where they can file appeals. So there's, this past, I guess we started getting them, a lot of them in November, December. So they can just come in by the dozens, literally. Yeah, so there's quite a
Annually.
few out there.
Annually?
Pardon me?
Annually?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
As I recall from my past life, this is almost a never-ending process.
Yeah, it is, and of course, that's across both communities as well. So, and these are industrial, commercial appeals, so they're not residential appeals. These are, that's the challenges there, of what the intervention involves.
Okay, so if no further questions, may I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the attached Second Amendment intergovernmental agreement authorizing Fenton Community High School District 100 to participate in the consortium?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, John. And may I have a roll call, please?
Rego,
Yes.
Cade,
Yes.
Jalowick,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Redzinski,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Ting-Po-Pong.
Yes, and motion passed. Next, we go to the resolution authorizing preparation and publication of fiscal year 2023 tentative budget.
Just an annual process. We talked about this a little bit earlier this evening in terms of the resolution to formally start the process for the budget for next year. So this would be for the 22-23 school year. So to align with school code and the budgeting process, we're asking the board to adopt the attached resolution to just formalize that and move it forward.
I think we've been doing pretty well, so we'll keep going on that route. So may I have a motion that the Board of Education adopt the resolution of authorizing preparation and publication of the tentative budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
So moved?
Thank you, Juliet. You get a second?
Sure.
Okay, Patty?
Sorry.
May I have a roll call?
Rego?
Yes.
Jalowicz?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Radzinski?
Yes.
Figueroa?
Yes.
Haid?
Yes.
Tinkpol-Pong?
Yes, and motion passed. Next business is the 2023 school calendar. James?
Sure. We would like the board to take into consideration the approval of the 2022-23 school calendar. It's been a 2-month process. We have a balanced school calendar for next year. We have taken consideration and comments from the board as well as our staff and association. I would just like to go over with you a few items that we considered after hearing comments from the board and staff as well. We have pushed back the start of the school a week later to August 15th instead of August 10th. 3 days later, so we have to make up those 3 days. So that moves us to the Thanksgiving weekend. Though 2 of the days will be during the holiday, which is the 21st and 22nd, Monday and Tuesday of the week of Thanksgiving, which is our normal tradition.
Right.
Okay? So what do we do with the last day? We put that at the end of the school year. So we will end the school year Friday, May 26th. Friday, May 26th. Like I've informed the board as well as our staff, is we want to have a balanced calendar, 88 days first semester and 88 days second semester. That is the ideal. I think we have achieved that. We've also ran this by District 2 and District 7 and some of the taxing bodies, as well as the DuPage Regional Office of Education. This is the general trend going on in DuPage.
So a little bit longer summer, traditional Thanksgiving, a little bit longer Christmas break. Okay. So may I have a motion that the Board of Education approve the 2022-2023 school calendar as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, John. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Celia. May-
Questions?
Roll call, please.
Questions?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Pardon,
so,
yep.
I know we were talking about Juneteenth during the SEIU negotiations, and, I mean, like, is that something that has come down federally? Is that, like-
It has not. That's a state holiday.
okay, that's a state thing?
That's a state-approved holiday.
State approved.
It's not federal, kind of like President's Day or Lincoln's birthday or
Martin Luther
Indigenous Day.
King.
Yes, correct, Veterans Day.
Okay, just like, also election
Election, yes.
is a state.
Help me remember, Rick. Go ahead, Sam. No, but it's a state holiday.
Okay. Okay, so do we have the option to acknowledge it or not, or is that like just, if state says we have to do it, we have to do it? Or do we say, well,
Are we certain it's not a federal holiday? Because I Googled it and it does say that it's a federal holiday. Juneteenth?
Well, we're out of school anyway. School's closed. So that doesn't
I
affect
think
our
it's
school calendar.
correct. It's celebrated, I think nationwide. The state here took a vote on it, Illinois, that it is a state holiday. Like what John was saying earlier, we're out of school at that time. Are we going to recognize that day? Absolutely. Would it be a holiday for employees at Fenton? At this point, no.
That I'm assuming will be addressed in the next CBAs for each local.
We've argued that topic. They're currently receiving 11 holidays. The association that have asked, we said we're willing to include that holiday, but you have to give up another holiday. We would like to keep it. We think 11 holidays is a generous amount on top of the other benefits that our staff receives.
So I'm going to just make sure everybody's got any questions. We can take them now. We're going to move forward after this then. Okay. So can I accept the motion and the second?
Yes.
Okay, great. So can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Rego?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Redzinski?
Yes.
Figueroa?
Yes.
Haid?
Yes.
Jalowick?
Yes.
Ting-Po Pong?
Yes, and the calendar motion passed. Next is our IASB press policies. And we went over this last meeting.
That's correct. Just a quick summary. We covered I believe the 23. Was it 23 or policies, Jose?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The press policies. I forget how many.
I think 77, something like that.
77
Yes.
policies there. We reviewed that last month. The board and the committee said, hey, look, we don't need a second reading. Put this on the agenda and vote on it pretty much.
So unless there's been no changes, we went through it last month during the holidays. But I wanted to give the board a chance to make any other comments on it. Okay. Then we'll vote on it. May I have a motion that the Board of Education approve the November ISB press policy recommendations as presented and discussed at the policy committee meeting held on December 15, 2021.
So moved.
Thank you, Leo. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. May I have a roll call, please?
Rego?
Yes.
Redzinski?
Yes.
Figueroa?
Yes.
Haid?
Yes.
Jalowick?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Ting-Po Pong?
Yes, motion passed. And next we go to committee reports, starting with the Bensfield Community Foundation.
Nothing new to report. We have a meeting on the 27th of this month.
Okay, and next would be the Board DEI Committee.
Kit and I have working together to schedule to attend the meetings with the clubs and auxiliaries here and just see if they have any concerns. And then that we plan to do for the month of February. And then we also have plan to schedule a meeting in March, a DEI committee meeting.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Committee meeting, who's on the committee?
Pardon?
You said a committee meeting, DEI?
Yeah, it's going to be, under the recommendation of James, an actual, a DEI committee in March scheduled. So something like a finance committee or a policy committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
The ISB delegate, that's me, nothing to report here. Lend?
Len?
Yeah,
No, there's no
I-
meeting.
Who is Lend?
No.
Yeah, that's Patty and myself. There's nothing to report.
Okay. And NetSec?
There's nothing to report this month.
Okay, and the Board Policy Committee, we just voted on that, so nothing to report there. Now we go to announcement of the next board meeting, which is Wednesday, February 16th, 2022 at 7. And we have a Finance 101 Finance Facilities meeting. Will take place prior to the regular February board. Meeting at 6 p.m. May I have a motion and a second to go into closed session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to specific employee of the public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act, 5 Illinois CS 120 2C1, and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees based on 5 Illinois CS 122C2. So may I have that motion?
So move.
Thank you, Leo.
A second.
Thank you, Sylvia. And can I get a roll call, please, to go into closed session?
Rego,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Haid,
Yes.
Jalowick,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Redzinski,
Yes.
Ting
Yes.
Pong.
Yes, and we are in closed session.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Ting Paul Pong.
Yes?
Okay, so
Motion
we're
passed.
officially back open at 10:24.
And we are back to open session.
Can we turn off the recorder?
Yes, give Mary.
And,
And James, disregard some of the jokes we made about
We thought you guys went to eat the rest of the Chinese.
That was so
Like,
funny.
are they here?
before I make a,
That's cold and there's only good
before I
ones
make a
hot.
motion to end this meeting, I just want to welcome everybody back. Happy late New Year, and
Happy
we haven't
New
seen
Year.
each other since Christmas. And to the public, welcome our students, our staff, our faculty, our administration, and then our fellow board members. So welcome back, and let's go after this year. May I have a motion to end, and a second to adjourn?
Yes, please.
Second.
Okay, so John and Carrie, and can I get a roll call, please?
Rego,
Yes.
Jalowicz,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Redzinski,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Haid,
Yes.
Ting Paul Pong.
Yes, and meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Okay, 10:25.
All right.
Oy vey.
Okay, I do have.